very warm good morning to all the esteemed members of the industrial fraternity. The CII Institute of Logistics extends a warm and proud welcome to each of you to the 12th edition of Global Supply Chain Summit. We are honored to begin this Power Park Day full of distinguished leaders, and leading the day is one such leader. Mr. Clifford Patro is a senior partner and leader, data and AI at IBM Consulting, APAC, with over 20 years of experience in digital consulting and AI-driven business transformation. He leads a strategic initiative across Asia-Pacific region, enabling enterprises to scale through data and AI. He is an avid member of CII Institute of Logistics Advisory Council. I now call upon Mr. Clifford Patro to chair the inaugural session, welcome members, and set the theme of the context.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 12th edition of the Global Supply Chain Summit. And the theme that we have for our summit today is India's green leap towards a net zero supply chain. It is a very pertinent and relevant topic that all of us probably are engaged in. It is also my great pleasure to welcome Mr. R.K. Mishra. He's the Additional Director General, Directorate General of Foreign Trade, Government of India. Mr. Mishra is a 1995 batch officer of the Indian Revenue Services, Customs and Indirect Taxes, with over 25 years of distinguished experience in tax administration and investigation across customs, GST and narcotics. He currently also serves as Director of the Indian Institute of Packaging, Mumbai, and has previously held the charge of Development Commissioner, CII. Welcome, Mr. Mishra. I'm also happy to welcome Mr. Satish Shukla. He's a CII National Committee of Logistics member and a co-founder of Adverb. Satish brings over 15 years of experience in manufacturing, automation, and technology-led operations with a strong foundation in production and human resources. He has worked across diverse industrial sectors, gaining deep insights into factory operations and workforce dynamics. His expertise lies in robotics, automation, industrial automation, strategic marketing, where he continues to champion innovation and digital transformation. As co-founder and chief marketing officer at Adverb, he has played a pivotal role in scaling the company globally and positioning it at the forefront of smart automation solutions. So welcome, Mr. Shukla. Let me also extend a warm welcome to Ramanan R., Chief Innovation Officer of TVS Supply Chain Solutions. Ramanan has over 25 years of experience in technology-driven innovation and digital transformation across the logistics and supply chain sectors. Ramanan has deep expertise in commercial leadership, market strategy, and customer onboarding. He focuses on delivering measurable business value through digital initiatives in the Asia, Europe, Africa corridor. Welcome, Ramanan. And also happy to welcome Dr. K. Ganesh, who is a member of the CII National Committee of Logistics and a partner at McKinsey & Company. Ganesh specializes in logistics and supply chain transformation for various industries, and verticals include auto, consumer, and chemicals, specializing in, of course, supply chain and logistics. He has over 22 plus years of research and consulting experience. So welcome, Ganesh. A little bit about the CII Institute of Logistics. We all know about India's goal to become a 7 trillion economy by 2030, and this relies on significant movement of goods, with the logistics and supply chain sector playing a very pivotal role. As a significant contributor to GDP and a major driver of job creation, this industry holds immense potential for our nation's growth. The CII Institute of Logistics is a center of excellence established by CII and serves as a collaborative platform bringing together policymakers, industry, academia, training centers, and aspirants to aim at equipping professionals with the essential skills for the evolving logistics industry. In this context, the CII Institute of Logistics has launched Logistics for All, engaging all stakeholders with a vision to position India as a global logisticians hub. Some of the upcoming events, CII Institute of Logistics is organizing the 3rd edition of the Solutions, Technology, Automation and Robotics Conference in September in Hyderabad. And in collaboration with IIT Madras is conducting a 5-day in-campus certification workshop on strategic supply chain mastery, navigating risks, technology and performances in September 2025. The 12th edition of the SCALE Awards, which happens every year, is on the 5th of December in Hyderabad. And happy to invite all to participate in that. The CII Institute of Logistics also has a talent pool of over 100 industry-trained MBA graduates specializing in logistics and supply chain management, and they are available for placement opportunities across the country. In the last 10 years, all the students that have come out of this institute have been successfully placed by the industry. So thank you for your support, and we look forward to your continuing support. About this conference, the 12th edition of the Global Supply Chain Summit. India is poised to play a key role in shaping the future of global supply chains. As the nation is accelerating its manufacturing ambitions and strengthening its position in international trade, it faces a dual challenges. How do you foster economic growth? At the same time, how do you mitigate the environmental impact? The urgency to address climate change and transition towards a low-carbon economy will necessitate a paradigm shift in how Indian supply chains operate. And we have a unique position because unlike China, which did this, say, 20 to 30 years back, at that point of time, the focus was not so much on having a balanced growth, keeping the environment into consideration. We are in a unique position there. So the theme, India's Green Leap towards Net Zero Supply Chain, is a very timely initiative to explore and accelerate India's journey towards decarbonizing its industrial and logistics sector, while also positioning this transformation within the broader context of the global sustainability. The focus of aligning India's national development goals with its climate commitments, forging a path towards a sustainable and resilient future that benefits the entire planet. So India's commitment to achieving net zero emissions by 2070, along with its ambitious renewable energy targets and the National Green Hydrogen Mission, demonstrates its determination to lead by example. However, transitioning to a net zero supply chain requires a holistic approach. It includes policy reforms, technological innovation, financial investment, and a collaborative partnership on a global scale. So in this year's conference, the theme is India's Green Leap towards a net zero supply chain, and we have 3 sessions. The first one is on mobilizing global green finance for the sustainable supply chain transformation. Second is around cross-border collaboration and technological innovation. And the third is more about the practical use of technology transfer and innovation to get us towards a net zero supply chain. So with these 3 sessions, we'll kick off with the first session. Wish you all have a good day, good interactions, good learning. May I now request Dr. Ganesh, who's a member of CII National Logistics Council and McKinsey, to deliver his theme address.
Thanks, Clifford. Thanks a lot. So good morning, everyone. Very glad to be here. Global Supply Chain Summit, 12th year, 12th edition, is always special because we bring always new topic. I know this is, today topic is something cost versus carbon. I think that's why we start the session with the green finance, right? How do we kind of make this more finance oriented? I think that's very interesting. We will actually have a fabulous day. As Clifford mentioned, this is need of the hour. People actually looking at a cost consciousness, obviously that is there, but how do you kind of make cost consciousness along with the carbon consciousness is also very important, and that's where the overall industry is also evolving. Today, at least for the next 10 minutes, I keep it for 10 minutes, so we have a 10:30 already. My intention is to kind of introduce how the overall net zero strategy and what is the full potential and how do we playing offense to the strategy. I think that's the idea to kind of share. If you ask me the question whether sustainability is an option or no option, I think it's no longer option, right? I think each and every company is now stepping back and thinking through sustainability as one of the key important area in the business goals, right? I think it is not only a process industry, I think even a discrete industry, I think stepping back and figure out how we can actually think through the sustainability in a holistic way, because there is a need in many ways, right? I think if you see this slide, I think the idea would be number one, the investment. I think if you look at the 3 to 5 trillion in sustainability investment is evolving, by 2030. I think there is a huge investment evolving, number one. So significant near-term value at stake because of this investment. So that is number one. Number two, the environmental regulation is very bolder. If you think from a context of the overall corporate profit, almost like 30 to 40% of the corporate profit are actually at stake from an external engagement, which is like a carbon pricing and carbon neutral element, right? So which is also very important element for us to think through a sustainability. And the third element is how the overall investors looking at. Investors' requirement is also increasing lot from this dimension, and that's where you see 2 to 5x uplift possible, and definitely investors looking for this now. I think that's where I think it's very important for us to think through. And fourth important element is now the premium, not only from a consumer industry, even other industries also evolving, how the price premium can evolve for a sustainability product, right? I think you probably would have seen HUL is running the show on premiumization from a sustainability product, right? And that's where I make 15 to 30% price premium, especially for a sustainably produced product, and that is evolving across industries. That is also very important for us to think through sustainability. And the fifth element is talent, right? I think how we can actually think through the talent moving to a sustainable companies. People are now, the young generation, thinking through, like, I look at the ESG-oriented goals company. I think that's where I think people really wanted to settle themselves. That is also evolving with the next generation people. All the millennials actually looking for an ESG-oriented context. The last, how we are actually coming in the first movers, right? I think obviously the cost, the working capital, the profit margin, all actually in the game plan. But hey, I'm the first mover of the sustainability goal. I think that's where I think many companies want to be a first mover. Probably you can ask a question, Ganesh, I think where are we? Definitely as an overall region, Europe is in the fast mover. They're already moving fast. If you look at from the curve, what you see, China is also evolving. Definitely we follow China, right? So, and Europe and US is already leaders, and China is actually also evolving in all dimensions. If you see all the 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions, what you see in front of you, right? One is how the climate-related laws and policies, China as a country is evolving, number 1. Number 2, how the litigation cases, which is especially from a climate-related aspect, that is also the second element which is evolving. The third element is the investment, especially on the renewable energy capacity. That is also evolving across all 3 regions. That way, I think in all the 3-4 regions, the world is at an inflection point. And it is very important for us to also step back and think through this. I know we all actually know we need to go to the goal of 1.5C path. Where are we? If you don't do anything, there's 1.5C path, I think with no further action, we don't reduce from 5 degree, right? But the goal is 2050, 2070, right? But the current actions is only like a 2C pathway. I think 1.5C pathway, I think it's very risky. We need to kind of really have to find out what are the different mitigation has to bring in as India as a country. I think definitely we need to think through that. So how do we adapt and how do we kind of make a mitigation? Because today, the next decade is decisive. We need to really step back and think through this. The reason is, I can actually talk about many sectors, but at least one example, what I've seen is the global energy systems, right? That has been tilting towards sustainability. So not only from a sustainability angle, what you see in front of you, right? The technology cost, if you see over the few years, from a wind, solar, battery, I think you see in a scale of 100, I think you see a huge reduction in the technology cost. That is actually helping us to move the needle. Don't tell me that I can't do this without the right technology. I think the technology cost is also like moving the needle well. That is helping us to fuel the bar, right? Second is, people are also thinking from expansions in the at least from an energy point of view, right? Electrolyzer capacity, that is also like almost like 10x in the process industry is evolving. That way, I think each and every system is evolving. Example is global energy system, right? So the important element is the net zero equation does not close today. If we don't do the right actions, there is a 90% gap today, right? I think that is real. There's a 90% gap today from an emission reductions point of view to comply with our 1.C pathway. I think that's why we need to really step back and see where is the reference and what is the reference, how we can move the needle. Let's get a view from a different industry. I think the next slide is going to be a super heavy slide, but at least I want to give a different industry, how they're actually embarking a journey from a 2030 and 2050 point of view. This is a recent research we have done from a thermal power, from iron and steel, from road transport, how the pathway looks like. Definitely across sectors, we need a stark change, right? At least some sector actually is like really thinking to move the needle well in 2030. I think at least from the thermal power, yes, I think huge change going to happen in 2030 itself. Even from the mining angle also, you can see a huge change, which is like a 65 to 70% in mining. People really wanted to move the needle in 2030 itself, right? So just the next 5 years. So that way, there are few industries like a thermal power, mining, even the constructions, buildings, all of them actually looking towards sustainable policies, sustainable products, and so on and so forth. I think that way, each and every industry is kind of evolving in this dimension. That is for sure, right? And what is the requirement? I would actually say the requirement in terms of 3 dimensions. One is, we need a building blocks, which is a physical building blocks, which is very critical. We need this requirement. One is, the innovations and technology has to come along, number one. Number two, how we can actually bring the ability to create at scale, I mean, the physical building blocks has to happen at scale. I think that is also very important in terms of infrastructure point of view, can we do it at scale? Third element is the availability of all the natural resources. These are the building blocks from a physical point of view. Second, how we can look at from the economics and societal adjustments, right? That is also another second important dimensions where how we can bring the effective capital reallocation, right? So the financing structure, the reallocations, policies has to evolve. That is also very important area to focus. And how we can look at from a compensating mechanism. I think if you look at the socio-economic impacts, how we can do a compensating mechanism, what is the incentive structure evolving, policies evolving, that is also very important from a economics adjustment. The third important element is the commitments. How we can, towards the commitment and enabling mechanism. So mainly the consumers are moving towards it, and then there is a conviction, there is a collaboration across your multiple partners that is evolving. That's where I think the 3 requirements are evolving well to kind of meet the net zero equations. And we need to kind of step back and take it to your stakeholder from a green finance point of view. Then I think it's more sellable, right? And I talk about the real example, right? I think if you look at the AI industries and process industries are actually having a clear goal, 2030, some actually 2030, some have it 2040, right? So at least from a decarbonization target from a scope 1, 2, and 3, it's very clear. I think people actually have a clear target for 2030 and 2040. If your company actually is set to think about this, please think about it. Because across sectors, companies are making bold investment with the both cost and carbon consciousness that is evolving a lot, right? The real example I probably show in the next slide, right? So I think few sector, I can't read each and every example, but at least oil and gas, if you look at the BP, they actually look at in terms of how we can do a best moves, especially from new markets, a new portfolio that is happening from oil and gas. From a steel and chemicals also, many companies like DSM and 𝐒𝐿 are evolving from different core strategy and growth as well. I think these are some of the, I'm not going to go each and every company, but these are the companies already moving the needle globally, including India, right? So let's actually learn from net zero leaders how they can make it more cost and carbon consciousness. I think let's actually learn that. I think that's very important, right? What are the 3 important elements which is these companies are doing? One is the portfolio moves. That's what is happening. Can we also look at portfolio towards sustainability, especially how we can allocate the capital with a focus on sustainable parts? That is one important area evolving. Second is how we can think through the decarbonization activities. That is a second theme evolving from a strategy point of view. And third is the green growth, especially from the innovative financing models. I'll probably show some examples from other countries. That way I think it's evolving in 3 different aspects. Portfolio moves, step back and think. The decarbonization, especially from an overall your supplier, customer, value chain point of view, how you can think through that. And the third element is green growth, right? For an example, if I take a chemical industry as an example, right? I'm talking about EBITDA. End of the day, EBITDA makes very important, right? 2 to 5x is very clear, right? I think the sustainability leader, achieve the TSR and also valuation. So that is actually the investor requirement versus the cost consciousness coming along. If you see very clearly, right, when the path of your leaders and laggards, the leaders, what do you see the cyan color, right? So they have a 2 to 5x. I think that's where I think few companies are actually moving from an overall EBITDA point of view. So that is very well possible, right? And we need to kind of step back and think through the actions, right? What are the actions? Example actions, probably if you have to really name something, right? One is how we can switch, take a process industry example, right? How we can switch to a closed loop recycling for aluminum. I think that is one of the area where it actually reduces 40% of the cost, at the same time 60% of the CO2. So it's a closed loop mechanism for aluminum recycling. I think that's the clear example of both cost and carbon consciousness, right? And how do we redesign the plastic packaging? It's happening in the chemical industry, right? So you have a 10% cost reduction, 18% carbon efficiency reduction, right? So that way I think figure out the ideas, because right, I think from the overall EBITDA point of view, like the global disruptions, whatever happening today, right? So that actually affect your EBITDA 4.5%, meaning if you bring 5% cost reduction for a company, the global disruption which is happening today will bring additional 5% cost, right? So that way it gets negated. So every year 5% cost, either from a contracting or from a product cost reduction or a process cost reduction, will get negated because global disruption actually bringing additional impact of 5%. So we need to step back and think through very different ideas. And these ideas are actually really evolving from each and every industry point of view. Let's actually step back. Maybe another 2-minute level, maybe 1-minute level, right? So today the theme is 3 themes. One is the green finance, how we can think through the technology innovation, and third is how we can do a technology transfer. The 3 themes today for you, right? Green finance. Green finance, if you look at 3 different areas, right? One is from a carbon removals, from a biodiversity, and from a water quality and resilience. These are the 3 themes evolve across countries, right? And this is going to happen a lot in India as well. I mean, you see multiple country, multiple schemes, and that is evolving, and people who are multinational, who are actually evolving with the multi-country export imports, these themes are applicable and relevant from a green finance point of view. I think you will hear more from the session 1, how this is evolving in India. We actually have an expert from Japan, how this is evolving in Japan, what they're doing and what they actually think from a cash, capital and carbon. You're going to hear from one of our experts, Soshi. You will actually get to know from North Asia as well, the US. That is one important element. Second, the theme is the innovation, the technology innovation going to hear today. I think if you look at logistics reduction, I think that is happening across your transportation innovation, warehousing innovations, especially on the emission drivers, how we can do the decarbonization action. This is happening a lot, right? I think these are the element which is evolving in logistics innovations for sure in the country, how we can look at the overall reduction miles by the right set of levers. I'll probably share the next slide because it's huge number of levers. These levers are applicable for India. Whatever you see in front of you, right, this is applicability for India. And we have Ramanan and TVS is actually embarking a journey at least from both cost and carbon angle. I think from a network redesign, how we can think from both cost and carbon. From a routing optimization, how we can think from a carbon angle. So from an energy efficiency angle, how we can bring the new different fuel. All these levers are evolving well within Indian companies very well. The deployment window, if you look at, some actually already moved the needle, some actually the full scale achieved. So, but this definitely requires some investment. I think once you're able to bring the case on the table, the investment will come along. I think that's where I think my point. Not going to go each and every lever, but I'm happy to share the slide, right? So the emerging zero emissions, if you look at least from a few examples, what you see, the Daimler, Amazon and Schneider, what they're doing is they're actually doing a very good announcement, right? Daimler trucks and buses, they target completely the CO2 neutral, that's where I think the auto OEM is evolving. So the emission reduction from a zero emission point of view, like you can see, what are the different, how the reduction in per truck well-to-wheel emissions from auto OEM is evolving. I think that's a example where people are actually getting into a transfer of technology, right? And the good example would be Toyota, which I actually experienced and I actually implemented myself, right? They're introducing a zero emission forklift with the different power options. I think that is where I think we need to think through from a tech transfer in terms of the product itself. And we actually always bring the futuristic view. The next view is a futuristic view. I probably do this in the next, after 5 years, whether we achieve this, but 2030 is going to be this. This is a space in which you're going to have the overall vision of net zero logistics and paint this wall in your, paint this picture in your wall of your company and then see where are you and assess yourself, whether we have a factory powered by 100% renewable energy, number one. How we can think through a IoT-enabled telematics, number two. How we can think through a goods transported by the e-trucks happening within the intralogistics. That is actually very well happening. Right? How we can think through the planes powered by the hydrogen and other fuels. How we can think from a green warehouses, which is evolving from different dimensions. So this is a paint which I really wanted to put on the wall. And so this definitely going to happen in the next 5 to 7 years. And we can expect a lot more to come, right? Closing thoughts at a 10-second level. So what is the way to approach this? Number one is, you should have ambition. You should diagnose yourself, where are you today? And then you probably think through a forecasting of your specific portfolios, your moves, your, bit of a customer plus supplier ecosystem, and then search for the opportunity, search for the investment. Definitely there are multiple investments are available, and then choose winning place, who can join hands with you and then move on. So all the best for everyone, for the today net zero. I think it's very important. I know while we're actually very conscious on cost, this is also going to become as near of the hour. And as Clifford mentioned, we're going to have a CII Awards, and that's also going to carry the theme of sustainability. Scale is always special, for CII, right? And this year theme is also going to be, multi-theme oriented. So don't miss the CII Awards. Actually, come and learn much more sustainability in a scale. Yeah. Thank you very much. All the very best for the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ganesh, for that insightful talk. I think as supply chain professionals, we're used to looking at cost versus service and the trade-offs involved. I think we've got to include sustainability as one more angle and look at the trade-offs involved. The thing that I took away from this session is, while there may be viability gaps today, but a lot of financing is available. So we've got to bring that on the table, and there's a lot of opportunity to get green financing involved and bridge this viability gap. With this, we move on. I'll ask Satish to give us his inaugural address. Satish, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, CII, for giving the opportunity to share my thoughts on behalf of 𝐕𝐺𝐻 with the learned audience on sustainability. So that was a very power-packed session earlier that I saw, and I picked up some of the points from those sessions. Primarily, so I represent 𝐕𝐺𝐻. I'm one of the co-founder of 𝐕𝐺𝐻, which started in 2016. We design and develop made-in-India robots and automation systems, which power Fortune 500 companies across the world, right from India, US, South America, Europe, Middle East, Australia. And coming from that lens, I'm going to give you a very different view where I feel sustainability is not a trade-off. And at the end of the day, the supply chain professionals have to juggle with running a business or an operation, and sustainability has to be a part of it. So the major theme of my talk would be on how to drive efficiency with technology and innovation. So if you're efficient, if you're pushing up productivity, you will be sustainable. That's an output. That's more of an output that is going to come. So before I touch on the 3 topics, I would just like to briefly touch on evolving supply chain. So one, and I'm not going to talk about strategy or marketing or what are different considerations, but only from a supply chain perspective, a humble supply chain professional sitting at the supply chain of different companies, different sectors. So first, there was an old economy model where you would have factories, you would manufacture anything in your factory, and then it would come to a distribution center, a regional center spread across the country in the context of India, which would definitely then go to a depot, a store, or a dealer, according to different industry, if it's a commodity, if it's an FMCG product, if it's a jewelry. And then all the end users would come to this outlet or a retail outlet to buy all the products, right? So pretty simple supply chain to that extent. If you are not able to fulfill a product, there will be no revenue loss because the customer would wait. And we all know the story of waiting for a two-wheeler for 2 years, 1.5 years, waiting for a car for 6 months. So the flow of goods was one side, flow of information towards the other side, right? Very simple days. You could all drive different initiatives in silos and live the day. But then with liberalization and then dot-com coming in, something changed, which I call as new commerce. So then I think it was 𝐍𝐞𝐭-𝐙𝐞𝐫𝐨 who came with the concept of core competency. And you outsource everything which is not your core competency to optimize for cost. And that's how Apple championed the concept of designed in California and had a global manufacturing setup where they would get some parts from Vietnam, some parts from China, manufacture the phone and distribute it. Some companies championed the hybrid model where they would have factories where they would manufacture their premium products per se, and then they would have contract manufacturing facilities. And then the product from both these facilities would be combined to be transferred to a distribution center, right? Then to a dealer in a store and an end user, correct? Now the life of the supply chain professional becomes more complex because now he has to manage an own factory, he has to manage a contract manufacturing facility. Then came digitalization, and then companies started skipping distribution centers to increase their margin, right? To go for margin expansion. Now again, there's a supply chain guy who's now building up captive DCs, captive factories, and is now, instead of sending their material to one distribution center, is now sending it across to 300, 400 dealers, depots, stores, and the supply chain becomes more complex, right? So the first priority of this professional is to ensure that there is fulfillment in the entire supply chain, right? Sustainability is not a prerogative anymore. It is about efficiency. Then e-commerce happened. Amazon was launched with books, perfect model for e-commerce because you have fixed number of SKUs. There is no issue of returns. A physical store can have only limited number of books. A digital store can have infinite number of books, right? You don't even need to own factories now. There will be factories of different publishers. And then the supply chain guy would get all this material in and then would now give it to end users who are spread across the length and breadth of the country. So now the end users are not coming to one location. Supply chain becomes more complex. You introduce the concept of mid-mile, you introduce the concept of last-mile delivery, right? This gets translated to grocery, this gets translated to fashion, this gets translated to electronics, and now you can order a two-wheeler on e-commerce, right? When everybody thought that this was done, then came quick commerce, post-COVID. There was 10-minute delivery, there were dark stores, no distribution centers, no fulfillment centers. The Zeptos, Blinkits of the world would ask all the companies to deliver goods at their dark store. So now this poor supply chain fellow has to manage a new node again, right? Now, entire system has to be developed again to fulfill this new model, because if they are not a part of this model, there will be revenue loss. And then there was D2C, where anybody could just get a contractual factory, build a small factory, put their product on Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and sell. So there's a supply chain model that has to cater to this as well. And what this does in the process is it introduces returns. So if I order a two-wheeler from e-commerce, it doesn't work, right? There has to be a return and a replacement. And that is true for all the products, all the products. Today, you won't believe, a lot of companies, the material moving from factories or distribution center is less, the material moving from end customer to return is more. So returns has become the single source of, largest source of supply for many industries and many companies, right? And 30 to 35% of the cost, energy, efficiency goes on handling these returns. And what has this done? Only from a supply chain perspective, there would be some supply chain team or professional who would be there when modern retail was working, would have said e-commerce is too slow a market, too low a market, we cannot tune our supply chain, we cannot tune our systems, it will be too inefficient, and then there was a new player that emerged, Similarly, the new e-commerce player probably said that quick commerce is too small a market, too niche a market. There's India 1, India 2, India 3, India 4. It's only for India 1. And then new players emerged. And in the process, the existing players were found running. And that's the story of every industry, right? Similarly, you can see for pharmaceutical, every new model led to emergence of new players, and the older players were found wanting. Similarly, you had Titan I+, you had Essilor, Vision Express, and then you had Lenskart. So every time the existing player thought that my supply chain could not change, it is not very cost effective for my supply chain to change, and a new player emerged, and then you were found wanting and you were found running. So now if you have to manage all this, what is the supply chain playbook, which also essentially from a practitioner perspective, from a micro perspective, happens to be a sustainability playbook as well. You have to pursue new technologies. These new technologies should focus only on efficiency and productivity. If you're able to solve, at least from an intralogistics point of view, if you're able to focus on these two problem statements, you'll be able to make your supply chain more sustainable. And the last point is that your supply chain has to be resilient, has to be agile. So if a new model emerges, can you change it? Can you repurpose your supply chain to cater to all these new models without getting left behind? So what are these new technologies? You don't need to always focus on new technology, but you can go on conventional technology like material movement, point-to-point movement. You can go for autonomous mobile robots. You can go for forklifts. You can go for flexible sortation, where you do not have to invest in fixed infrastructure. Because if the model change, if SKU profiles change, if channel change, you can use the same robot and you can deploy this robot for more efficient outputs. Just like we are talking about global financing model, there are models like RAS today, which help you to change your supply chain models on the fly. You can have robot as a service. You can use same kinds of robot at one location, transfer it to a different location, transfer it for a different use case. You need to go for more efficient storage spaces. So what if my warehouse has a footprint of 6 lakh square feet, 8 lakh square feet? Can efficient storage help me reduce my footprint to a 2 lakh square feet? Can I have a lights out warehouse where I do not need to depend on any manual intervention and I can change my warehouse layout immediately? And you also need to focus on upcoming technologies, right? So can I have a humanoid working in my warehouse? There are trials going on with Amazon, which is doing a trial with agility, where they are trying humanoids to do operations of picking, packing, dispatch in your warehouses. The advantage is that you don't need to design your intralogistic facilities, your distribution centers for a particular process. You can just pick and replace your process as per the business requires. And these are highly efficient technologies, right? This is physical AI that I'm talking about. The advantage with these modern technologies like humanoid, quadruped, cobot is that they also evolve. It's not a fixed program that is working on these new technologies. It's AI. This AI also evolves looking at its surrounding, its physical manifestation of the AI that we see. Now, what is the approach for purchasing these technologies and deploying automation? I'm just going to give you a comparative analysis. So the present purchase process focuses on compliance and not innovation. So you prepare an RFQ, you focus on inclusions and exclusions. See, at one stage, we want supply chain to be very agile, very resilient, focus on efficiency. But at one stage, we are designing supply chain for inclusion and exclusion, right? We are talking about silos. These are not silos. Your supply chain has to be sustainable. There is no option. Your supply chain has to be efficient. There is no option. And if you focus on this efficiency and productivity, you will solve for all problems. But you will have to change your traditional purchasing process. So today, the focus is on RFP-driven requirements. There is no space for innovation. These are the inclusions that I have. These are the exclusions that I want. There is no future problem statements, right? You're not looking at innovative ways of financing. You're not like RAS. You're not looking at innovative ways of solving a problem. Now, what do you need to do? Engage in joint scoping exercises with your vendors, with the 3PL partners, with contract manufacturers. Encourage them to also follow practices for efficiency and productivity. Use technology like simulation to see what changes your solution need or your factory needs if there is a change in SKU profile, if there is a change in market. Involve cross-functional stakeholders right from the word go. Focus on the 3 R's. Can your systems be repurposed? Can your systems be reused? Can your systems be recycled? For instance, if you're buying a forklift or if you're buying an AMR, how many battery recharge cycles can the AMR go through? Is a lithium ion the right technology for me, or is a lithium titanium ion right technology for me? A lot of these questions will only come if there are joint scoping exercises and you're focusing on total cost of ownership of automation and logistics systems. Again, the traditional systems are dictated by legacy systems. So what is the ERP that I have? Can I build a new layer on my existing layer? If you have a supply chain which focuses on distribution through regional centers, through FCs, to dealers depots, and then to retail store, you cannot build a system to cater to dark stores. You cannot build a system on top of that to cater to newcomers. So you need to think about disrupting your entire stack, making it more flexible, more agile. Always prefer integration-ready systems. Do I have a VDA 50/50 protocol? Can I have a hardware which can be integrated with any software in future? Can I have a software which can be integrated with any kind of system in future, right? Use digital twin for deployment. One of the biggest challenges that people face while using automation or while going for any technology in general is that there's a lot of customization involved. My business operations are different. The SKUs that I am handling is different. Use digital twin, right? It will bring down the deployment time by leaps and bounds. You will be able to create a playbook where you can do horizontal deployment of all the solutions that you have deployed at one site. So this is how you can probably change your approach towards purchasing automation for your intralogistic facility, which is more efficient. One thing that supply chain should focus on is driving efficiency and productivity, because it not only makes you sustainable, it also helps you in improving your margins, especially when top line is not growing and there's a lot of pressure on margins. You need to focus on efficiency and productivity. Some of the things through which you can probably do it in a factory and an intralogistics setup is to focus on system performance and uptime, focus on mean time between failures, focus on is there opportunity charging for your robots? Can you utilize software to improve the throughput of your existing systems? It might have been designed for a particular amount of throughput, SKU profile, layout, but can you optimize it by doing A/B testing? Does your software allow for that? You train your staff for efficient interaction. You always focus on safety. And then strengthening automation with resilience and agility. See, one of the things, so always focus on making your supply chain more resilient. There are cybersecurity threats, there are data security threats. You need to be very mindful of it right from the time when you're designing your automation solutions. Is there a private key that can make my security vulnerable in future? It's very important to focus on these questions right from the time when you're designing your supply chain, your nodes, everything. And then you have to make your supply chain agile. One of the biggest challenges that we typically face is whenever we go for a new solution, we are not ready or we are not open to re-look at the existing way in which we are solving that problem. So all these new technologies give you an opportunity to thoroughly evaluate your present processes, your present supply chain, and your present issues. So focus on also evaluating your present processes and also focus on modular solutions. Technology becomes obsolete very fast. If you do not have modular solutions, if you are not focusing on modular technology, whatever you implement today might become very obsolete in next 12 to 18 months. So these are some of the things that I feel will make your supply chain, especially the intralogistics and factory part, highly efficient, highly productive, and that's the way for a sustainable future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Satish. Innovation, technology, sustainability, I think you made a point that all of that goes together, goes hand in hand. Thank you for that. I think what we will do now is we will release the white paper on resilience, moving from, and then once we release the white paper, I'll ask Mr. Mishra to give his inaugural address.
very happy to be here. Good morning to all of you, distinguished members, speakers on the dais. This 12th edition of the Global Summit on Logistics, with the theme that we should have net zero and going forward reduce the pollution and environmental damage by the logistics industry sector itself. It's a very timely one. I handle the charge of Western Zone of DGFT, that is tasked with the handling the policy-related matters of export, import, that is foreign trade policy, implementation thereof, and also the charge of Director of Indian Institute of Packaging, body of packaging education under Commerce Ministry. So I have shared with Ms. Bhanumati, you would be Dr. Bhanumati, right? Dr. Bhanumati, that some presentations on that. I will request her to share with the delegates if there is a WhatsApp group or something, also with the speakers. The last date is 16 June, therefore I am taking this opportunity. Packaging is a very important field on which I will touch upon, although the time is very short. I wish to speak more, but others have spoken wise words already. A lot of things that I needed to touch upon is known to you. So from the government's perspective, I will like to paint a picture of what exactly has happened so far. The stage was green what? When the green word came into being in 1972, those who remember, in Stockholm there was a conference where sustainability and for future generations we are responsible was talked about for the first time. And a body called UNEP was created. We moved on 20 years on that path, and then in Rio, Earth Summit, major steps were taken, Rio Declaration was signed, and we moved on the path of tools of sustainability, what we should be doing. Some progress happened, but the way the earth was warming and the way the plastic and other pollution was taking shape, the people who are the leaders of the global economies, they woke up and they understood the urgency of it. And then that 1.5 degree from the pre-industrial temperature level, that kind of pledge was made. The kind of financing that the developed nations were supposed to give never happened. So that is a handicap with which we are living right now. Irrespective of that, India has embarked on a path of net zero by 2070 and reducing, making non-renewable energy as 50% of the energy mix by 2030, a very ambitious target, for which all stakeholders will be responsible. You would know that 3% of the all greenhouse gases come through the shipping lines. I am informed that this galaxy of attendees today handles international as well as the domestic logistics. So coming from the customs, I was Commissioner Customs in Nhava Sheva during the COVID years, the pandemic years when we moved heaven and earth to keep the wheels of economy moving, despite of deaths in the customs fraternity and everything that we faced. I went to the office every day physically in that period. So that was the call of duty which we performed. So coming back to what exactly shipping lines can be doing and what we should be doing, the shipping lines are aware of the responsibility of reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, which, as I said, account for 3% of the total greenhouse gas emissions. And their target, as per the IMO in 2021, is that by 2050, 50% of the GHG emission will be reduced. In this direction, Maersk, a big shipping line, has already embarked on the path of buying 8 ships which are powered by methanol, a carbon-neutral fuel. Similarly, in Japan, they are moving towards the fully electric kind of transport vehicles, which will be helping in this endeavor. Taking cue from the customs background that I come from, in 2017-18, the average time, logistics people who handle international trade will understand. We did time release study in Nhava Sheva for years. 2017-18, the period of average release of goods which are imported, a container which comes to Nhava Sheva, the biggest containerized port of the country, was 181 hours. By our constant endeavors and the fourfold path, I will explain it in a minute, we reduced it to 80 hours. So the 100 hours the container was lying at the port, this has been reduced by the constant endeavors of the customs department and the support from the other logistics partners. For that, we did, what you have to do is, you have to do a system analysis of whichever industry you are doing. That is what McKinsey will be doing, that is what anybody else will be doing. So I request you to go to the drawing board again and look at each system that is there. As a logistics operator or a participant in the logistics market, you should be knowing how the goods are moving, what is each stage of movement of goods, and what is the dwell time at each stage. So the reason is that we observed that the bill of entry is a document which you are required to file for importing goods into the country and clearance by the customs. So if you file a bill of entry after the goods have arrived, the time you can utilize, the system can pre-process the bill of entry, that time is lost. So we decided to make it mandatory for some categories going forward. So the bills of entry are filed beforehand and the goods arrive. By that time, the processing of the document is done by the systems or by the officer. So that saves time. Another stratagem was that we embarked on the scheme called direct port delivery. So those who know about the hub and spoke model, CFSs are the bodies or the places where the containers are stationed before the goods are cleared if the people are not willing to take delivery immediately. That is like a waiting platform. To allow importers to, or encourage importers to take the delivery of goods right from the port, we came on with the scheme of direct port delivery, which helped the people to take containers from the terminal itself, which saved time of transportation, energy of transportation to the CFS and the waiting time there. And similarly, the AEO scheme. How many of your AEOs, can you raise your hands? So I would request, this is a flagship scheme of the government, and I would encourage each of you to become authorized economic operator. This is a scheme operated by the Finance Ministry, which gives you a lot of, this is one takeaway which you can say that I heard a government officer and this was one useful thing he mentioned. So become an AU operator going forward in the next 1-2 months. It's a very simple scheme which gives you a lot of benefits. This allows your goods to be not examined in a more detailed manner, more picked up for examination. Your assessments are faster. You have rights which can be enforced before the customs, in fact, even before the DGFT authorities. And how many of you are star house exporters if you are in export business? So that is one scheme again which DGFT supervises, and it gives you a certificate which allows you benefits of, again, various kinds for dealing with the customs and DGFT. So these are the two things which I mentioned to you as strictly government kind of sense. The third is that I will be failing in my duty if I don't mention about the two flagship schemes of the DGFT, which are Advanced Authorization Scheme. How many of you are manufacturers? I asked audience to raise hands again and again. Quite painful, I know. So Advanced Authorization allows you to import goods, raw materials for export without payment of custom duty. And similarly, Export Promotion Capital Goods Scheme, EPCG it is called, allows you to import capital goods without payment of custom duty with some obligation of exports over the next 6 years. So these are the two things which you can look at. Even the service industry is allowed EPCG importations if you are importing any goods for the providing services. So this is the third thing that I mentioned to you. And going forward, I wish to inform you that the government is aware of the importance of time of every player in the economy. And therefore, DGFT has embarked on a path of all actions of DGFT being on the platform. That is, we have a portal where you can log in and you can access all our services, and we are duty bound to provide them. That is the third aspect. The creation of multimodal logistics park, that is one theme which you have to understand. Government has decided to establish 35 multimodal logistics park with the understanding that these logistics parks will be helping the industry in having logistical efficiencies, and they will be leading to reduction of logistics cost also. So the one in Assam and Indore and Bangalore and Chennai, these are expected to be up and running in this financial year. And that should help us in creating a better logistics network and kind of ecosystem. So I have explained to you what DGFT is doing and how the ambition of going forward meeting that lower pollution and lower environmental damages can be achieved. In this regard, the e-vehicle is a very, very important method or tool which has to be utilized by the logistics players. The kind of growth that should be happening in the e-vehicles and transport sector, that has not happened as yet, but I am very hopeful that with your support and the kind of capacity that the country is already creating in this sector, we will be achieving some success of repute. And the next is that solar energy. That this is a mission for the country, and this is taking shape in a major way. There are major solar farms where the energy capacity is increasing by leaps and bounds. This is one sector which has really surpassed even the expectations of some government officials. So if our energy mix changes, that will be a definite gain for the country going forward. The only thing is that the handicap is that the energy storing capacity, when the cost comes down, that technology transfer should happen, and that will help us in mitigating this particular challenge also of energy storage, because solar energy is not a constant flow energy, and therefore some kind of storage is required. So what I'm advising you is that one thing that we can understand is that any system which needs to improve needs to look at all the points of activities where any kind of interaction takes place, either with the customer or with a vendor or with a supplier. So logistics is not only limited to supplying the finished goods to the consumer or the market. It starts from the stage of acquiring the raw material or maybe planning the plant itself. How efficient the plant can be defined or designed so that the time and energy which is invested in that particular plant is maximized for utility and sustainability. In this regard, role of packaging is not evident to everybody, but when you package goods well and transport them, then the kind of space it will take in a truck or in a container, that is minimized. And every time a loss does not happen, that is a gain for the consumer and the industry at the same time. Because as I say in all such speeches, quality is not a cost, quality is an asset. If you build the quality of the product, the design and the packaging, there is no way a consumer will be dissatisfied. And a satisfied consumer is the only thing any organization has to look for. Presently, I'm looking for satisfied listeners right now. That is what my investment in you is. And I hope that whatever I am trying to convey to you has some impact on your mind. And when you go back to the drawing board in your own organization, you look at the processes and the interaction at each level so that the time and energy and the cost, these three are minimized. In fact, logistics cost coming down by 1% leads to a 0.3% of GDP growth. If the cost of logistics is 14% right now in the country, and I'm talking about international trade, if that can come down to, let's say, 8% or 6% of a Singapore or a USA, then that leads to a 3%, almost a 3% growth in the GDP by one stroke, and that is a recurring growth. So the responsibility of growth of a major kind resting on your broad shoulders, and I exhort upon you that you should rise to the occasion and do everything possible. This sustainability is a tool, and that applies to packaging also, because I am director of IIP, that is a packaging institute, where sustainability is the buzzword. Sustainability is a promise that you have to make to yourself, so that whatever process you deploy, every time a truck is delayed anywhere for an empty truck is coming back from a destination, that is a cost on environment. So what we have to do is we have to go to the platform and ensure that no truck moves empty, whichever be the situation. Now that requires a major solution of electronic or technological kind. I leave this challenge to you to ensure that nothing moves which is not loaded. And this is what is required to ensure that the impact on environment is minimized. Because some amount of pollution will be there, because if it is an electric vehicle, the electricity has to be produced somewhere. If it is thermal electricity, then it has some pollution impact. But we are moving in the right direction. And the step taken in the right direction is the only step we need to take. I have taken 15 minutes of your time. Thank you for the patient listening. And I wish that The things that you have heard today, a lot of technology and a lot of finance, and some kind of gyan from me on management and principles which you need to follow will have an impact on you, and you go back a more wise person. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. I'm sure you left a lot of satisfied listeners there and a lot to think about with the schemes that you spoke about. May I request Ramanan to give us his inaugural address, please?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to address this August gathering here today on the topic of net zero supply chains. It's not that, the job of somebody who's coming fourth or fifth in the dais is not a very enviable one, because most of the points that needed to be touched upon have already been touched. So I just was thinking to myself, how do I actually make sure that I'm able to give value to the internal customers here, which is the listeners here. So a lot of talk has happened by the various speakers here on what needs to be done. So I thought I'll just spend a little bit of time on sharing with you some of the activities that, as an organization which I represent, TVS Supply Chains, is focusing on the how it is getting done. So I'll just touch upon 2 or 3 big areas. The first is around digitization and automation. And the second is around sustainable packaging. I think Dr. Mishra also talked about it, but I'll share with you some examples of how it is getting done in our setup. And the third is on how do we actually bring in more energy efficiency, and how do we start infusing renewable energy into our operations. The first is around digitization and automation. So TVS Supply Chain broadly does 2 kinds of businesses. One is the warehousing and second is the transportation. And it's an integrated play as well of both warehousing and transportation for us various clients. The way in which we are able to drive sustainability is around what I would call it as a platform play, in terms of how do we digitize and automate the various processes that are core to the operations of the service delivery. For example, route optimization. For example, for fuel efficiency. Route optimization, it's a buzzword, and there are various softwares that are available. But what it really means as a 3PL operator is that we need to actually sell the story as well to our different clients in terms of how do we actually give value to them by optimizing the routes on their behalf. So a lot of work goes on in terms of optimizing routes. As Dr. Mishra said, no truck should travel empty from whichever destination to whichever destination, especially on return routes. How do we actually plan that? So since we have multiple clients in our portfolio, we try to very carefully plan using different kinds of softwares that are available to see the onward trips, and from the destination of those onward trips, what are the opportunities for us to actually prepare or plan for return trips as well. So we time it in such a way, and softwares help us to do that, to ensure that there is a least amount of waiting time at the destination, and also a least amount of pickup time from the new origin in order to bring the load back. So that way we have managed to see savings of almost close to 8 to 10% in terms of our energy consumption, which is in this case directly measurable as fuel consumption, measurable as the time taken for us to actually deliver the service to the customers. So we are able to do a trade-off. Of course, we wouldn't say we have mastered it yet, but we are getting there in terms of trying to see how we can balance the savings around energy consumed, resources consumed, vis-a-vis the time taken to service customers on the return trips as well. So that is one thing that we have managed to do it. Second is around, it sounds very silly, but definitely there's a lot of work which has gone behind it, which is on going paperless for the entire process of warehousing, and going paperless for the entire processes around transportation. The EPODs, for example, sounds very simple, but given the requirements by regulatory authorities, by tax authorities, it is a challenge to actually manage the whole process using e-PODs and e-documents. A lot of advancement has happened thanks to the government infrastructure, government platforms, wherein you can start filing in a lot of documents through the various portals. So that's a big plus for us. But actually translating those advantages to real on-ground delivery of services using e-documents is still a long way to go. For example, if you tell a driver of a truck saying that this is the way in which you need to take an e-POD and make sure that this gets uploaded and get a confirmation, a green light or a green tick mark, it involves a lot of training, it involves a lot of mindset change as well. So that is the second piece. The third piece is around resource on the packaging bit. How do you actually use packing designs in such a way that you're able to utilize your truck, what in the industry we call as TFRs, truck fill ratios. How do we actually maximize by using intelligent and smart packaging, smart cartoning sizes and so on and so forth. We are able to achieve that in various ways, as in it involves convincing clients to actually talk to their suppliers to change the LBH dimensions of their cartons and so on. It's a slow burn process, but increasingly companies are actually realizing the benefits of these kind of things because it directly translates into their cost benefits and cost of operations. The second area I wanted to touch upon first was digitization and automation. Second is sustainable packaging. Sustainable packaging is largely got to do with utilizing reusable packaging both for onward as well as return, using reusable material within the warehouses and so on. A lot of engineering work has already gone behind this. It's a question of openness to actually adopt these kind of new ways of storing. I think Mr. Satish talked about ASRS and the adverb related techniques that are available in the warehouse. Those kind of things are actually helping us in utilizing our packaging and also the recycling of the packaging materials better. The third is around energy efficiency and use of renewable energy. I'll talk about some of the examples. We have a lot of warehouse space across the country, more than 20 million square feet, and we have started making inroads on how do we actually power these different warehouses using solar. And that's a way in which, and the key challenge is what Dr. Mishra talked about in terms of storage of the power that's generated through solar. How do you actually optimize it in such a way that it actually reflects in the reduction of your electricity bill. So solar panels have been piloted by us, and we are finding at least 4 to 5% savings in terms of the way in which the electricity bills have started showing a positive up. Dr. Ganesh talked about some figures of 70-75%, but maybe we will get there. We are slowly making baby steps there. The LED lighting and the automated systems, I think that's been talked about. So fundamentally, I want to leave this speech with 3 or 4 messages for driving net zero supply chains. First and foremost, as an organization, what we have seen is that there needs to be belief right at the top. That belief of to set carbon neutrality targets, to believe that yes, this is the way in which it's not just required for compliance purposes, but the belief that yes, we need to do our bit towards a greener environment, towards a greener earth for our future generations. Then the second thing that we have started is on this scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 calibration. That is the measurement of the way in which, how much of GHGs, greenhouse gases, are we emitting? What kind of, there are different standard formulae that are available, so by which we can calculate that. So we have started doing that. And we have seen in our first round that a lot of us were shocked at the kind of calculations and the results that have come about. So it actually opened our eyes to say that yes, we must start measuring this on a regular basis, our carbon footprint. The third and the critical one is around the workforce and the employees. How do you take the full workforce along with you in terms of building awareness amongst employees on our commitment to net zero? I think that awareness, that internal awareness programs is very critical to take the people, and we have seen some fantastic, we ran an ideation program on how to, it was called Spark, how do you actually improve our efficiencies in a sustainable manner within the organization, and some of the ideas that came from the employees, right from the shop floor guys to the people who are doing, managing the trips, etc., was amazing. So taking the workforce along is another key message that I would like to leave here. So broadly, that's it I wanted to share with you, and I think India as a whole has got a great potential. We are moving in the right direction, and it's a kind of a turning point in Indian logistics. So that's it. I thought I'll just end my thing here. I'd also like to thank all the sponsors here: Adverb, Boimer Group, Safe Express, Horizontal Industrial Park, DP World, Trini, Freight Tiger, TCI, Supply Chain, and Total Group, apart from TVS Supply Chain Solutions. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramanan. I think that was the last speaker we had for the first session. Some of the takeaways, I think when we do a survey with many organizations, we find that there is a roadmap, there's a direction. The execution is not as fast as it needs to happen. So I think some of the insights you got, examples from some of our panelists of what they're doing, could be useful. Sustainability embedded as part of ways of working, not as some individual thing done in isolation. The need to start from the top so that we can ensure that direction is provided and involve everyone. I think those are some of the things I took away from this session. So thank you to all my fellow panelists for their inputs and insights in this session.